Hello and welcome to this interview in the series that is all about empowering a league of extraordinary mothers on how to lay a strong foundation for health and happiness in our teenage girls. Today's interview is with Marcus Pearce. Where do I start with describing who Marcus is or what he does? First up, he is the CEO of the Australia's #1 health and lifestyle podcast, The Wellness Couch. He runs longevity retreats each year in Greece. And he is an extraordinarily devoted husband and dad to 3 children. But what I want to talk to Marcus about today is his exceptional life blueprint, which he teaches to corporations and individuals. And today we're going to get a little taste of what that is. Thank you so much for being with us, Marcus.
Oh, thanks for having me, Edwina, and well done. Congratulations on what you've been able to pull together. I've known you for some years now, and I'm truly inspired by what you've been able to do. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I love your story from footy show, binge drinking man to vegan teetotaler. So I'd love you to share that with our audience, and then we can paint the picture.
Sure. I'll have my wife to blame. It's all my wife's fault. So, yes, I've always wanted to be, like a Bruce McAvaney, Eddie Maguire type commentator. I always knew I was never going to be good enough to play football. So I studied journalism and then spent 6 or 7 years in radio and TV. And just before I started working at the footy show, I went to visit my best friend from uni, who, if you're in Melbourne, you may know her, Alicia Loxley, who reads the news on Channel 9. Alicia and I are best friends from uni. I went over to Perth to visit Alicia, and cut a long story short, I met Sarah there. Sarah's a health professional. I'm smoking and drinking, and I loved all my personal growth stuff. My mum, actually, considering we're on a summit all about empowering mums, my mum, for my 21st birthday, gave me the Tony Robbins program called Get the Edge. And I reckon at the time it was probably $300 or $400. And my mum didn't have much money at the time. My mum and dad split up when I was 10. Best decision they ever made. But as soon as my mum and dad split up, I always tell the story. She went from a Mercedes to a Daewoo in about 5 minutes flat. And so when mum gave me Get the Edge for my 21st, I was chuffed. It's still to this day one of the most powerful programs I've ever done. However, I always conveniently skipped over the health section. In personal growth, you always do the things that you want to do, but then there's elements that you don't want to. And I just always skipped over health. And then lo and behold, I fall in love with a health professional who's into organics and, loves everything healthy. And she's falling in love with a smoking, drinking, workaholic journalist. And then, I still remember early days working with the footy show. We were new in our relationship, and footy show would be on a Thursday night, and we'd debrief for a few hours and have a couple of beers and a couple of cigarettes. And I'd get home sometimes 2, 3, 4 in the morning, reeking like beer and cigarettes, but too tired to have a shower. Just disgusting. You can imagine having a new partner enter your bed in the middle of the night smelling as I would have. So that kind of made me realize, and Sarah was quite happy to tell me what she thought of it. That kind of made me realize that I was madly falling in love with Sarah, and maybe it wasn't going to be great for me to continue down that path. And it was really good accountability because I established a habit of quitting rather than a habit of not quitting, and really did address the elephant in the room of personal growth, which I madly loved, but I was very good at escaping the health section. And so falling in love with someone that loved all things health was wonderful for my own personal growth. And then after we traveled around the world together, and then we came back in 2007, and I was kind of done with sports media. I loved it, but I realized I loved being a fan more than someone on the inside. And I was really bitten by the health and wellness and personal growth bug. And so I never really knew, all I knew was I would transition from sports media to health and wellness media or personal growth media. I never knew how it was going to happen. I just knew that it would happen. And to be frank, it took about 6 or 7 years. So I'm not into visualizing and manifesting in 30 seconds flat. I think anything worthwhile takes time. Mm-hmm. And then further down the track, got involved with the Wellness Couch podcast network, which was a podcast network at the time. And the wellness guys really wanted to run events, and events for me are bringing the podcast to life, but they're also like doing, it's like live TV, just without, a broadcast channel. And so, that's really how the transition into the personal growth and health and wellness field got underway.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. How long's the Wellness Couch been going?
I think it's 2011. It's either that or 2012. But it's now, I checked the other day, we're almost up to 7 million lifetime downloads, which is phenomenal. And, you know, we've got, I think, 23 different shows on the network at the moment. I think over 2,000 episodes on the wellnesscouch.com. And I was doing the maths the other day. I think we've had over 4,000 attendees at our live events. So I like stats. I love numbers because I think it's really easy to in life to get so fixed on you've had a bad day. But if you look at, you know, the 3,500 plus days of the last 10 years, you can probably say you've had a pretty good 10 years, you know. I just know for us, you know, we've got 3 kids, 8, 5 and 2. One day your kids could be in the worst form ever. But then if you actually take hold and reflect on the last 8 years of your life, you go, wow, you know, pretty magical, you know. 3 kids, all happy and healthy, and the rest. So, yeah, the couch is bubbling along and going from strength to strength to strength. And as you said to me before we started recording, you know, a number of your guests on here are involved with the Wellness Couch, and I think community, you know, as we talk about, you know, mother-daughter relationships and family relationships, you know, community is just one big relationship, and you can't have, you know, great lives and great health without great community.
There's lots of talk and lots, you know, about the downside of technology and how we're all kind of getting way too immersed in it all. But one of the amazing upsides is the community that can come together through.
Well, look at this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's paint a picture of your exceptional life blueprint, because I just, you know, my passion is all about looking at, you know, it is that big picture stuff. What is really important? Our girls at the moment, a lot of them are, you know, at that last sort of end bit of high school, and the messaging is so strongly, you know, if you don't get a good ATAR, your life is over, and, you know, all this messaging that I just really
struggle with.
Yeah. Not as a big fan of that. But, you know, what I love about the Exceptional Life Blueprint is it looks at the big picture stuff and how crucial these everyday life things are to our well-being. So what's the best way to introduce our audience to it, Marcus?
Yep, sure. I'll tell you the story. This is, I think the best way to learn anything is through stories. So, so when Sarah and I met, we did a lot of personal growth together, a lot of Tony Robbins work, and to cut a long story short, did a 10-day vegan challenge where we cut out meat for 10 days. That went on to 30 days, became a lifestyle. Sarah and I went vegan, cut out grog for 5 or 6 years. I think I was vegan for 7 years or so, but at one stage, I was reading a book called Healthy at 100 by John Robbins. I'll recommend it to anyone that loves to read. John Robbins was the heir to the throne of the Baskin-Robbins Ice Cream Corporation, the largest ice cream corporation in the world. He grew up eating breakfast, lunch and dinner, ice cream for breakfast, lunch and dinner. He swam in an ice cream-shaped swimming pool. His life was immersed in ice cream. And he had an epiphany one day that he was not going to take over the family business. His uncle, Bert Baskin, had already died of a heart attack. His dad, Irv Robbins, had heart disease and high blood pressure. And he essentially ostracized himself from a multi-billion-dollar inheritance, a massive empire, went out to the backyard of Canada with his wife, Dee, and they sprinkled some kale seeds and cabbage seeds out the back and started a new life together. And John Robbins went on to write many books, Diet for a New America, Food Revolution, and Healthy at 100. Now, on the second page of the introduction in this book, I remember it clearly. It was 2010. I was sitting on the edge of the couch. Sarah and Maya were asleep. I'm reading this book. John Robbins is a vegan. I'm a vegan. Here I am thinking that being a vegan is the number one thing to living a great long life. It is the fountain of youth. And in this book, the second page of the introduction refers to a study done by the Yale School of Public Health that was done on 600 people over the course of 20 years, asking them questions such as you age or get older, you become less useful. As you age, you realize your best years are behind you. As you age, you realize it's all downhill from here. As you reach a certain point in your life, you realize you're over the hill. As you age, you become more of a liability, more of a concern, agree or disagree. What the study found was that the people that agreed with those disempowering views of aging and getting older died on average 7.5 years younger than the people that had an empowered view of their age and of their life and of their future. They didn't measure their relationships. They didn't measure their financial status. They didn't measure their diets, their exercise levels, their genes. means
organizations
all they measured was a
globally.
belief. And this got me thinking, because here I was at the time thinking, well, if you're vegan, you're sorted. You know, you've really got it sorted. And this really opened my mind. As a journalist by profession, I'm very curious. And I was like, what if I was 100% wrong about everything that I had thought about what it took to live a great long life? I love personal growth. Here I am thinking that veganism, I was looking at doing documentaries on, you know, incredible vegans and vegetarians. And I was like, what if I was 100% wrong? And I realized that so many of Sarah's patients had these age-related excuses. I can't improve my health because of my age. I can't travel because of my age. I can't do fill in the blank because of my age. I'm too old to do X. And I went into work the next day and I heard this over and over and over again. I was like, this is where my life is going to be dedicated to helping people rise from mediocre to magnificent in every area of their life, whether they're 15 and scared of turning 20, or 20 and scared of turning 30, or 30 and scared of turning 40, which is so many people, or 80 and scared of turning 90. It doesn't matter. But I wanted to help people empower themselves about their future, because if people aren't empowered about their future, you can just take 7.5 years off right now. I don't care what age you are. And this is how it all began. And so we started a podcast. I called my good mate Damien Christoph and said, let's start a podcast. Damo was convinced that we would prove that carnivorous people were the longest lived, and I would prove that vegans were the longest lived, and his diet was the secret to life and mine was the secret to life. And we were both completely shell-shocked at the responses. And this is where the Exceptional Life Blueprint started to take hold. I'd been doing my own independent research for years, and then we started interviewing people, and I was like, hold on, there's a real pattern emerging here. And on 100 Not Out, we uncovered that living a life that you love, and moving your body regularly, and socially engaging with others were the 3 keys to living a great long life. They're the 3 keys to quantity of life. And then in my own independent research, I was thinking, well, where does nutrition fit? Where does your family relationships fit? Where does learning and growing and evolving? Where does money fit? Where does your spirit, soul, and faith fit? And so what I identified over a lot of time and thinking, and some people would call it meditating, but I was just journaling on it, going for walks, pondering, as I'm sure you can appreciate, Edwina, pondering the mishmash of thoughts that we have. That had been 6 or 7, maybe 10 years of thinking about what makes people tick. I was like, nutrition improves quality of life so well. So that was I had life purpose as the base of a great long life, doing what you love and loving what you do, moving regularly as the second step in a great long life, because without movement, you don't have life. Bruce Lipton, who is at the forefront of epigenetic research, will tell you that movement is life. Then we have socially engaging with humanity. Now, it may be your families, it may be your friends, it may be your colleagues, it may be the barista when you get a cafe, but just engaging with humanity. If we've got some older people watching or listening to this, Dale Carnegie's work, How to Win Friends and Influence People, anything that improves social intelligence. Robert Greene is doing some great work in this on social intelligence. This is the key to a great quantity of life. But then to add quality to your life, you've got to eat well, but not 100% of the time. The oldest human being ever to live, Jean Calment, smoked for 95 years, drank port wine every night, and had a kilo of chocolate every single week. So we can't be so fixated on our diet. And many of the diet experts, whether it's Pritikin, who died at 69 after he committed suicide when he found out he had developed cancer. Adele Davis had cancer, died age 70. She was one of America's forefront nutritionists. Michael Montagnac had prostate cancer, died, I think, age 66. He developed the South Beach diet. Robert Atkins, the Atkins diet, died of a heart attack, age 72. The biggest diet experts in the world had premature deaths. They all died younger than life expectancy. So having a 100% perfect diet is not the way to living a fulfilling and a life full of quality. Then we had love and relationships, and that's probably the key in all of this is we all know what it's like to go to Christmas Day and you've got awkward relationships in the family. So if you want a great quality of life, if you want a great Christmas Day or a great birthday or a great wedding day, then you want to harness and make the most of your family relationships. Families are the cheapest and the most powerful personal growth course you'll ever do. They don't cost a cent. They don't cost a cent. And you can learn everything about yourself and others by observing the polar opposites that you have in your family. Whether it's your teenage daughter that you have right now, who is so completely different to you, because remember, she's a different human being to you, or it's your cousin that you don't get along with, or your mum or your dad that you haven't forgiven yet, or your brother or sister that screwed you when you were younger or older or whatever it is. whatever relationship that you feel some resentment towards, it's probably in the family dynamic somewhere. So if you want to improve the quality of your life and the quantity of your life, there's a lot of research to suggest improving your family relationships. Then we look at growth. People that live a great long life with quality of life, they love to learn. They are students of life, lifelong learning, whether it's watching great movies, reading great books, traveling the world, just learning, doing U3A, doing dancing classes, learning a language, listening to podcasts, whatever it is, learning. And then we get to the top. A lot of people think this is the top of the tree, but it's really the most, the least important. And that is spending less than you earn and investing the difference. The challenge is most of us spend more than we earn and we don't have anything left over to invest. Yeah. But if you want to improve your quality of life, you must be financially responsible, financially smart. And so that's kind of a triangle. And again, at the end of the episode, at the end of this interview, I'll give people free access to all of this in much more detail. But then around this triangle, we put a big circle, and that's your spirit, your soul, and your faith. And that's really a circle because it must go into every single of the preceding steps that I just outlined. If you don't put your spirit, soul, and faith into your work, your movement, your social life, your nutrition, your love and relationships, your growth and your wealth, it's just intellectual. And then you get exhausted, and that's called autoimmune diseases. That's called adrenal fatigue. That's called stress, because often we're living so much from our brain and our head, and we're just mentally exhausted. We just want to, our brain wants to explode, and we forget to nourish our soul. And so I know this is a very long answer, Edwina, but really that's, this is the type of stuff that I love teaching families. I love teaching it to corporations. It might be with, I worked with the NAB last year, and then I love sitting down with a mother and daughter and explaining this, because this isn't my stuff. This is the stuff that has come through research of hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world, all ages, all generations, all cultures. There is a system or a template for living a great long life, and I truly believe that this is it.
Yeah. Marcus, a couple of years, I think it might have been a couple of years ago, it might be longer, you put a post on Facebook about a new coffee that you were trying. It might have been when Bulletproof Coffee came in, and I remember responding and just going, oh my God, Marcus Pearce on caffeine, that's all we need. And as you talk, your passion, and it is just so inspiring, Marcus. I love it.
Oh, thanks, Edwina.
It's awesome.
I'm no different on caffeine, just so you know. I'm no different before or after. I just have caffeine for the joy of it. It has no energetic impact. I like it. I think it has some creative impact. Yeah. I think it improves thoughts, so I have some left of field thoughts, but I'm not one that has to get up in the morning and have a coffee. I'll be perfectly okay. I'll be exactly the same as this, unfortunately for some.
I'm just imagining Sarah, as she gets out of bed in the morning, just be bam.
Well, if Sarah has caffeine, you'd see her flying to the moon and back. Yeah. She is just, that's why she doesn't have it. She's a shy girl.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So let's break these little, these steps of the triangle down, so that it becomes something that, we give people a bigger picture of what a life blueprint looks like. So starting with life purpose, how do you talk to a teenage girl that's maybe 15 or 17?
This is, absolutely. This is perfect, because there is so much pressure on teenagers at this stage of their life to identify what their life purpose is. Yep. And I feel for the teenagers. Yeah. I feel for the parents that think that it's important that the teenagers need to know. Because there's a lot of pressure that then goes on the parents. They think, what have I done for my child to not know what it is? I've sent them to school. I may have paid tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they don't know what they want to do. And then they can project that pressure onto the children. Look, I'm a journalist by profession. I am not working in the mainstream media. I don't know what you studied straight out of school, Edwina, but half of the people I know, Damien Christoph, studied accountancy. So many people that I know are not doing the work that they studied straight out of uni. Many.
Yeah, I didn't work out that I wanted to do naturopathy until I was thinking about 25.
Yeah. Oh, geez, you're a late bloomer, aren't we all? And this is the challenge of the current school system. If we can just for a minute look around us at the people in our lives that haven't identified their doing straight out of school, you'll realize that your kids are going to be okay. The element that is more important of life purpose, you got two elements here. You got doing, which is what a lot of people are so focused on, but then you got being.
Yep.
So do what you love to do, but be who you love to be. And a lot of people get so fixed on, I don't know what to do with my life. Well, my answer is be someone that inspires you. Be someone that you can look in the mirror and that you love. So being can come down to, are you being kind to people? Are you being honest with yourself and others? Are you being respectful of yourself and others? Are you treating yourself with respect?
Yeah.
Are you putting food into your mouth that is honoring your body? Are you having fun with your friends? That's a level of self-respect. Are you enjoying time with your family? Are you reading books that you love to read, not books that you think you should read or someone else tells you to read? Are you watching movies that you love to watch, not what other people? Are you living your life on your terms? Behavior is far more like, and the be part of it is far more important than an action, because an action can be done by any uninspired human being. But behavior, like that's got a whole different level of soul attached to it. That's got a whole different, and particularly when it's congruent. When your behavior is something you go, you know what, I don't know what I want to do next year, and that's okay, and that's okay. But don't ignore the doing. But if you don't know what you want to do, or you're scared to say that what you want to do because the fear that it might upset your parents or your friends may disagree with it, then all I'm going to suggest is that you develop, and this is the key thing, and there's no hack to this, but you develop the courage to do what you love to do in spite of fear and in spite of rejection. Mozart was a musician from age 4, and it was such a steady income for the family that his dad had Mozart and Mozart's sister pretty much going around Europe playing concerts. And then Mozart says to his dad, "Dad, I want to be a composer. I'm sick of just playing the same old music over and over again." And his dad is like, "No, son, this is safe money. This is what you were born to do. You play music. You are Mozart. You play music." And then one day Mozart went to Vienna to play a concert, and guess what? He never went home. He's like, you know what? I'm a composer. I'm not going back to my dad's house, to my family home, to make my dad more money so he can have a safe income. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to stay in Vienna. And I'm going to tell my dad, I'm sorry, Dad, but I'm going to do what I feel a burning desire in my heart and soul to do, and that is to compose. And you know what, Edwina? Mozart's dad never forgave him. He never, ever forgave him. Now, there's a lesson in that for both the child and the parent. Good on Mozart for following his bliss. Yeah. Good on Mozart for putting the relationship with his dad on the line. He probably didn't think he was. He probably thought his dad would forgive him. Mozart's dad could have forgiven him. Any parent here that's like, my child must follow this path, which is the path that you want your child to follow, not what they want to follow. The challenge for the parent is to take a step back from ego world and come back into spirit, soul, and compassion world. You know what? There's another human being there, child or not my child, that is living a path that is not my path. It is their path. As what is it? The Prophet Khalil Gibran says, "Our children come through us, not from us." They are not our children. This is the best thing, particularly when they're 5 and they're behaving like little critters. It's their stuff. It's their stuff. But let's give them the grace of working through their stuff. And let's see if we can have an element of unconditional love where it's not like we've got fine print on the contract where it's like, I'm only nice to you and I'm only kind to you. I only support you financially and emotionally and mentally when you do live the life that I want you to live. Why can't we be unconditional? Where there's no fine print on the contract of love. It's my corny one-liner. When my wife, Sarah, feels like she's been acting like a COW, I'm like, babe, act how you want. It's not my stuff. Yeah. No fine print on the contract of love. Same with our children. Who cares if they're behaving like crazy, crazy people? We've all done it, and we will all continue to do it. There's no fine print on the contract of love. If you can have an unconditional, like a truly unconditionally loving relationship with your child, then particularly in these teenage years, it won't be hard to support them. If they're going through the ups and downs of life and they're in a very volatile place of their life, because if you look at this Exceptional Life Blueprint, their life purpose is up in the air. I was fortunate. I knew I wanted to be a journalist. I knew I was going to study journalism. It was done, okay? It wasn't a big deal. But for many people, it is a big deal. But we need to support our teenage children, love them anyway, even if it takes them 10 years to work it out. That's the path, and they are truly testing how unconditional, how deep is the well of your love for that child. I better just stop or else I'll just keep on banging on.
No, I love it. I can just get completely lost in it. As you talk, I'm sure every mum's doing the same thing, but as you talk, I'm thinking about experiences with my own kids, and being the real foodie that I am, my kids know what I think about fast foods and so on. My eldest son, his first job when he was, I think, 15 was at Macca's, and he just couldn't wait to come and tell me he'd got that. And Zoe,
to annoy you, to see how much it pushed mum's buttons.
Look what I'm doing. I'm like, that's awesome. It's all responsibility. It's all experience. And, the quickest way to probably never eat it again is to go and get a job there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my other, Zoe, my second, who's 16 now, she went and got a job at the fish and chip shop. And, I honestly,
that is so comical. That is cosmic, comic. That the foodie mum that is has very high standards on food, has one child working at Macca's and another one at a fish and chip shop.
I've still got another 2 to go. We could do KFC and we just line them up. That's
like Warren Buffett's children being on the dole or something. That's awesome.
It's great.
Yeah.
So that's life purpose. The next one, which is my greatest nemesis, and everybody who's ever listened to me knows this, is exercise and movement. It's my, it's my thing that I have to do. I just have to make myself. It doesn't come easily. And I think, I learned to hate exercise in my teenage years as a very self-conscious teenage girl with great big boobs who had to, run and move around, and I just felt like a clown. And so as soon as I left school, it was just this great celebration that I'd never have to exercise again.
Well, I'm the bane of all women with big boobs, because at the Wellness Summit or any of the events, you may remember, Edwina, get people moving around in between all of the sitting, and we're jumping up and down. And I always remember, because now I use it all the time, I always remember a lady from the crowd going, "I didn't wear a bra for this type of exercise." So now when I'm doing it, I go, "I know you all hate me right now because you didn't wear a bra thinking you're going to be doing big squat jumps today." But it's interesting that you said here, I learned to hate exercise. I mean, what a mantra. I learned to hate exercise when I was a teenager.
Well, it's all that typical stuff. The one that, is standing left, the last one in line that no one wants to choose for the team, or, all that humiliation is really hard to move past.
Yeah. So there's a few things here, and I'm so grateful for your honesty, because it allows me to use your language as an example to share with others. And I think, so that I don't forget this, as we go through all of this, for everyone listening, none of this will shift in the teenager without it being observed in the parent first. Yep. And so let's use Edwina as an example, because you said I learned to hate exercise. For a start, banish the word exercise, because it's that word that brings up the feelings of hate. Let's talk about movement, okay? There is no use putting good fuel in the car if you don't move the car. There's no use having a great diet if you don't move the car, which is your body. Now, your body is already moving with all of its 75 billion cells or trillion cells, whatever, the number changes all the time. They are all moving and buzzing around, whether it's this way or that way, or you've got cells moving and blood moving and all the rest of it. The body is moving whether we like it or not. As you're nodding your head, I'm nodding your head. That is using fuel in the car. Now, we must be really clear here. We don't have to exercise. We have to move. Our body was born to move. Look at any old person that is sitting in a nursing home, in a chair. They are not moving. And that lack of movement is speeding up the rate of decay so quickly, it's not funny. We like to think, however, that it doesn't affect us when we're younger. And yes, I look around here. We've just had the Blues Fest up here recently, and there's so many women 16 to 25 that look sensational. But they also hate exercise. They look phenomenal. They have genes on their side, but at some point it catches up. And I really think it's important that we balance out our love for food with our love for movement. So a few things here, particularly for the mums with teenage children right now. Movement with the combination of socializing is one of the most gratifying ways to move. Going for a hike with your daughter, going for a walk with your daughter, going for a walk down to the local cafe and then having a coffee, and you can either sit and have the coffee together, or you can walk and sip on your takeaway and have a chat together. Walking and socializing, the masculine logical side of me is like, it's great, you get to do two things at once and knock it off, or really you get to knock off movement, socializing, and improving your love and relationships. And if you're having good food with it as well, you can knock off nutrition as well. But it's quality time. Quality time is all movement is quality time. Whether you love swimming, whether you love dancing, you speak to enough people that have aged well. Making love or just spending time with your intimate partner is a great way to move. A lot of people don't like to talk about it, but you look at dancing, swimming, walking, hill walking, and making love are the 5 tried and true, been around forever. Any culture, any forest, any civilization, all those things have been around for forever since humanity's been around. So bring in those universal ones. They don't cost a cent. They cost time, but it's not exercising. It's not CrossFit. It's not a yoga class. It's not Pilates. It's not anything structured. It's just something that you do. When the music starts, people can't help but dance. When the water's there and the ocean is looking you in the eye, you can't help but jump in it. When you're with your child and they just want to play with you, particularly when they're 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and my boy wants rough and tumble, and then Maya wants me to throw her up in the air because she loves ballet, and then they want to do run and jumps and do daddy be a Lego man and all these things. It's not exercise. It's just movement. That's all it is. And that's where movement rules. Exercise. I know plenty of people that exercise, they die prematurely. Because they're so fixed on, I've got to exercise, and then they attach all of their nutrition to it, or they don't attach their nutrition to it, or they're antisocial because they have to exercise a certain way by themselves, or they might hate their job, but as long as they're in good nick physically, they're okay. It doesn't work that way. You know, this hyper niching, which has happened in life, probably because of traditional and social media, like we're all about work, or we're all about our body, or we're all about how much money we have, or we're all about how many books I've read. I read a book a week, a book a day, whatever it is. Everything that's so hyper niched has consequences in all the other areas of life. And so this is all about not making it a task, just making it a way of life. Movement is a lifestyle choice for the exceptionals, whereas exercise is a lifestyle chore for the mediocres. You want to go from mediocre to magnificent, going from chore to choice. And when you can drill that philosophy into your family dynamic, just watch your children grow up with movement as a part of their lifestyle, rather than exercise as something they have to do because mum and daddy said or social media said. They'll just move because they want to, not because they have to.
I did a dance class last term, and there was, this group of women here in Torquay, and we did burlesque and jazz and also, and we just had such a laugh. It was so much fun. It was great. And
it was social, and it's a social thing that made it fun. If you were doing that by yourself, you probably would have enjoyed it less.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a great way to connect with other people in the community that you don't otherwise meet.
And it's accountability, because if you're not there, then people go, where were you?
Yeah.
We missed you. And so movement with the addition of social accountability can be really cool, particularly if you're doing it with a friend or your daughter, any child, partner, whatever it is. If you find that movement's not a regular part of your life, bringing someone into the equation can be really good.
Yep, 100%. Okay, so we've got life purpose, or I think for our teenage girls, I like to think of it as love what you do and do what you love, whether it's baking a cake. And
be who you love to be. What brings out the best in you, the best in you. What brings out the best, the behavior will, because you might do what you love doing makeup. You might be the next great makeup artist. You might do what you love when you're trying on heaps of different clothes. You might do what you love when you're curled up reading a book. You might be someone that's great helping your friends with their relationships. You might be the next great marriage counselor, relationships advisor. Like, it doesn't make any logical sense what you love to do. It doesn't make any logical sense. What lights you up. What brings out the very best in you.
100%.
Yep.
So, so there's life purpose and movement, and the third one in that base of the triangle,
social.
Yep.
Which for teenagers is massive.
Yep.
And so this one here is you become who you hang around. So ... who are you hanging around? Now, this is very confronting for adults and for young adults, young women who are very much ensconced in many friendships, but don't necessarily feel that those friendships are secure. Particularly when they're based on an external appearance, whether that's their weight, their body shape, the clothes they wear, the makeup they've got on, their hairstyle, the type of glasses they have. They're all external.
Yep.
Nothing heart-centered. Now, as hard as this is, you want to write down, mums and daughters watching this or listening to this, write down the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yep.
And then, without sounding mechanical about it, give them a tick or a cross. They get a tick if they bring out the best in you. You love being around them. You feel safe to share your challenges. They get a cross if you feel self-conscious. You don't feel like you can tell them the truth. You feel like you're just trying to be happy and, put on a happy face when really you're underneath, you're really not coping. You don't want to spend time around those people because they will feed your ego in a negative way where you really don't feel great about yourself. It'll be exhausting trying to keep up with them. One of the most liberating ways to create your exceptional life is to hang around people that inspire you. And I think, that's why with the Wellness Couch, we just love doing events. And we love doing the podcast, which means we can put on the events. And that's because it's the people that we hang around, the listeners. We love our listeners. They're all like us. We're all the same. You know what I mean? You don't have to pretend you're someone else. It's all just very natural. And at the same time, a lot of listeners come saying, I don't feel comfortable around the people I spend time with. Half the time that's because they're not doing work they love to do. They're doing work that pays the bills. And they feel scared of rejection. They feel scared of hurting that person. So I just suggest, and this is tricky, particularly for the teenagers who are in school, you go, well, I go to school with these people every day. Like I can't just leave the school. That's 100% fair enough. What I would just suggest to you is, how can you spend time with maybe other people in the school? Is it time to develop some new friendships? Is it time to maybe join a class or a club, a learning thing? Maybe you've always wanted to play tennis and you haven't. And that would be a great way to actually give you some time away from study. Maybe you don't have to be great at tennis. You just want to learn it. Maybe there's something you want to join a book club. You want to join a dance club. And it means that you end up spending less time with certain people. And that can be empowering to you when you're doing, and it almost creates a convenient excuse. I know when I stopped drinking, it almost was a convenient way to spend less time with people that wanted me to go out drinking, because at that point they just weren't my tribe. And so if you make some behavioral changes that are congruent with you, it's amazing how that can lead to new people coming into your life.
Yeah. And focusing, on things that you want to try, on your experiences or things that you would enjoy, you're more likely to connect with like-minded people. That just makes
and then another one here, and again, it's a corny one-liner. It's got a bit of dad jokeness on it, but social media is not socializing. And that goes for the teenagers watching and listening, and the parents as well. Look, there'll be times when parents just find it easier, and some people suggest it's a good idea to know how to be able to send your kids messages on Facebook Messenger and those things. And it's not for me to say whether that's good or bad. I'm not at all. I don't have teenage children, so I'm not even in a space to be able to say whether that is or not. I don't have any opinion on it. But what I do know is that if you're not spending time harnessing your social intelligence, socializing is a muscle and it atrophies. It gets small. The more time you spend on social media, the less time you are developing a social muscle. Often it's better to catch up with someone. It's better to speak with someone in person. At the very least, speak to them on the phone. Sending messages, whether it's text messages, emails, Facebook messages, Instagram direct messages, Snapchat messages, whatever it is, there's no tone. And when there's no tone, there's no feeling. And when there's no feeling, there's no connection. And so you wonder why you feel disconnected from people. It's because there's no connection on social media. It's not connective. It could be connective in learning about people that live in your area that you could connect with in real life. But you can't emotionally connect. It's very difficult. Maybe a little bit on video, which is why these are the most powerful digital products that you can have. Video, yes, to another degree, audio, like podcasts and listening, but it's really difficult to, you imagine being in a room when someone tells you that a loved one has died versus hearing about it on a phone call or on the internet or on an email. It's a very different feeling, So I just think it's really important that people understand what role that connectivity is having in their life. Often it's just creating hyper disconnectivity.
I've seen a couple of reports lately about schools that have decided to ban mobile phones in schools, and the difference that they're seeing in the kids are actually talking to each other at lunchtime and doing stuff. And I just, I have to confess that my girls are allowed to have their phones at school, and it absolutely, I just cannot understand how anyone thinks it's a good idea. But I put something up on our community notice page just saying, this is what they've done in another school in Melbourne. They've had all these positive results, but I got backlash. People didn't think it was such a great idea. So
this is the thing. It's not the kids that are the problem. It's the adults that think that it's all a wonderful thing. My view is, our kids go to a Steiner school up here, and I believe they don't get on a computer until year 7, I think it is. Yeah. But I know they get enough computer time. They're fascinated by what daddy does. They want to go, Daddy, can I do typing on your computer? And they see me on the phone and they want to touch it. They want to FaceTime Nana and Pa. If kids didn't have their phones at school, I can guarantee they'd all be getting enough of it. It's a part of our lives. Yeah. But when it becomes toxic, and toxic is anything that is too much. Yeah. I think we can all agree that for a lot of children, it's become toxic. Too much screen time, too much social media, too much game time, too much whatever it is. A little bit every now and again. It's like food. A little bit of Cadbury chocolate every now and again. You'll be fine. You're not going to die. Yeah. But when it gets toxic and it becomes habitual, then we are talking diabetes. Then we are talking cancers, because when it becomes a lifestyle, it's a different kettle of fish. And that's where a lot of people are beginning, are still very resistant. They think it's like almost an entitlement. This is our society. This is what our kids deserve. The kids deserve probably to appreciate the value of not having something, so that when they do have it, they appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered, like the foundation. This summit we talk about what's the foundation for health and happiness, and I think we've looked at the foundation, and in reality we've only probably got 5 minutes left of this.
Yeah, no, I can definitely run through the last ones.
So let's just go through those last bits. A bit more of a picture.
This is probably more for the children as much as it is more than the parents. So when it comes to nutrition, for the parents, let the kids. If you don't buy chips and you don't buy Cadbury's and all the rest of it, they can't eat it. But if they're old enough to go and buy it because they've got their own jobs, let them learn the lessons. Yeah. But as the parents, if you eat great food for the rest of your life, the example will sort itself out. Mm-hmm. If you eat great food for the next 60 years of your life, parents, your kids will be okay. The power of example will win. Now, I may be wrong and a few times in that, because you might go, well, they've had 16 years of junk food conditioning, and that may be true. But if they're going to be in the house for another 7, 8 or 9 years, Kim Morrison has fascinating stories about this, because her son, Jacob, is 17 or 18 or 19, and he has his fair share of junk food, but he also knows healthy food as well. And as his peer group grows and develops and changes, I have no doubt that the standards on his food will as well. But I don't think you need to create any more stress in your life by pointing fingers to teenagers. They're at a phase in their life where they're trying everything, like everything. Yeah. The best thing you can do is lead by example. And then, just as my mum says, go on the don't buy it diet. Like, under your house, your rules, if you don't buy it, it's not fed. But if they're at the age where they earn their own money, I mean, unless you really want to hold 100% of their money, I just think you create tension. And at some point, there's an outburst. They go on a binge. Yeah. And whether that's in alcohol, if you have a no alcohol policy, you know what? They're at the age where they're going to start smuggling it somehow, and then it gets tricky. You probably know, Edwina, that I run this longevity retreat in Ikaria, this Greek island known as the island where people forget to die. They don't mind if their 12-year-old child has a tiny sip of wine. They know they're not going to become alcoholics. They're just observing what their parents and their aunties and uncles and their grandparents are doing. So that's really important. For the kids, don't feel guilty as you're learning about the world. You're going through a phase where you're learning. That's the nature of it. But know that if you're watching and listening to this, you're an empowered child, you're an empowered teenager, and just know that it's all learning. Even the successes and the things that don't feel like success. But when it comes to food, just listen to your body. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. I know foods that don't work for me, and I know foods that do work for me. Just don't